Mr. President, welcome to the land of free press. This was the message with which Finland welcomed the then US President Donald Trump and his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin during the 2018 summit in Helsinki. The Nordic country chose to boast its press freedom while welcoming the two high-profile guests, and it had every reason to do so. It consistently ranks highly on the Press Freedom Index, securing the 5th position in the 2022 edition. But why does Finland enjoy such a high level of press freedom? Today, I will try to find out as I am joined by Eero Hyvönen, chairperson of the Council for Mass Media in Finland, which is a self-regulatory body for the Finnish media sector. Previously, he worked at the Finnish public broadcaster Yle and also Helsingin Sanomat, which is Finland's largest subscription newspaper. Eero, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Mahmud. Good to be here.
Okay, thank you. So now I will try to say something in Finnish, welcome you, and then you will tell me if I'm saying it correctly. So olen Mahmud ja olen toimittaja ja kirjailija Bangladesissa. Tänään puhun Eero Hyvönen kanssa lehdistön vapaudesta Suomessa. Hän on JSNin puheenjohtaja. Eero, tervetuloa podcastiin. Was it good?
Paljon mahtavaa. Great.
I know the word mahtava. It's great.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Very well done, Mahmud.
So my first question to you is, we know that Finland ranks highly on the Press Freedom Index, which is released by the Reporters Without Borders every year. So my first question to you is, why Finland ranks consistently highly on this index year after year?
Yeah, there are several reasons, naturally. But first of all, I think it's not a sign of things being perfect in Finland. Far from that. But also, when you start analyzing the reasons, I think trust is the most important reason behind the high position in this index. Because people tend to trust in Finland in each other and in the institutions in very much more than in other countries. And media is one of those institutions people tend to trust. But it doesn't mean that people trust blindly. It doesn't mean that they accept everything for granted that is in the media. Of course not. It's a trust in the system that you can... the media's role is to challenge politicians and if we talk about news media, politicians and authorities, and the audience can challenge media through self-regulatory system like JSN, Council for Mass Media, and it's trust in this system that there is enough goodwill in the system.
Yeah, I get it. So I think there is very good legal framework in Finland, and which is one of the key reasons why Finland has this high ranking on this Press Freedom Index. So specifically, there is this 1999 Act on the openness of government activities that ensures both the public and the press have access to all official documents, except those that are categorized as secret. So what role do you think this plays in strengthening press freedom and also allowing journalists to do their job properly?
Yeah, that's very important. You're absolutely right there when you mention that act and the principle of openness in the society. The transparency is very important in building trust. But then again, this act is not perfect. It's far from it. Actually, it's being on. There is a parliamentary group trying to improve it.
Okay.
Yeah. So I can, if you're interested, I can tell you some details which are difficult in this situation nowadays. For example, people communicate nowadays much more through social media and apps and stuff like that, and it's questionable whether that kind of information is public. and so on. But usually that is interpreted to be public. But when it comes to, for example, publicly owned companies and enterprises, then there are problems with the openness. These companies may play very administrative roles in the society, and then again you are not able to get information. The Openness Act doesn't cover that kind of situations well enough. So very much of the information can be in the shadows when it is located in this kind of companies.
So if journalists request access to any official document of the government, which is not confidential, and if their request is still denied, what can they do?
They can file a complaint in the administrative court, and if the administrative court denies access, they can apply for ruling of the Supreme Administrative Court.
Okay, so they can actually take legal help if their request is denied.
Yeah. And administrative courts are free of charge in Finland. You don't have to pay anything.
Okay. So of course that actually makes the job of a journalist very easy, because if he or she can take legal help when his or her request for information is denied, so he can actually do something about it. And I guess this is not the case in many countries, where the journalists are requesting information from the authorities, but they're denying it, and then the journalist cannot do anything. So this is, of course, one of the reasons why Finland has such an open country, and why the trust in the Finnish system and also in the society is so high. So my question is, of course, it's a very relevant question. Why is trust in news media so high in Finland? The Reuters Institute Digital News Report 2022 found that trust in media was the highest in Finland among 46 countries. And I guess it was 69% of Finns, they said they trust most news sources most of the time. So why do you think trust is so high in the media in Finland?
Yeah, it comes back to this trust in the system. That as you quoted, the question in this survey is, do you think you can trust most of the news most of the time? And 69% say that yes, they think so. And again, it doesn't say that everything is okay with the news media, but the general level is good enough. And to build that kind of trust, it's again a result of a very, very long journey. I would say that it's quite a new phenomenon in Finland. Actually, I'd say that when it comes to, for example, the public broadcaster Yle, it was some decades ago, say maybe 40, 50 decades ago, 4 or 5 decades ago, it was self-censoring itself quite heavily during the times of Cold War and stuff like that, and that the political pressure was very strong on Yle, and even some journalists were chosen on political grounds for the positions there, and gradually it has evolved into a real journalistic media without any strings, or not any, but without any harmful strings attached. If I simplify a little bit, and it needed legislation. In many countries, the public broadcaster is under the rule of the government. Like they cannot run their operations without license from the government. and of course we have license system here also, but the role of the public broadcaster is defined in the legislation, which is much more difficult to change than the terms in a license. So the government cannot change the terms of the operations overnight. It takes much time and much public debate. But this is a new phenomenon. Like in the 90s, it became like this.
So the situation was not like that, like 4 or 5 decades ago, as you say.
Yes,
it has evolved into this high trust system.
Exactly.
In the media. So as you were talking about Yle, so we know there's the Finland's public broadcaster, and it also enjoys high trust as a news source.
Yeah.
And in a recent survey, the trust level was 85%, which is really high. So how does Yle maintain impartiality in its coverage and enjoy such high trust despite being largely owned by the Finnish state? Like, what do you think? Because, in many countries, as you said, the media is actually at least the public broadcaster, it is controlled by the ruling party or the government. But in Finland, it's not the case. So why do you think that's the situation?
Yeah, that's one part of the explanation, but also there's there's one thing that may be a little bit surprising. But Yle was early on developing new kind of applications for audiences, which means that as well Helsingin Sanomat, the biggest daily and the biggest tabloids, which are not the kind of tabloids you see, for example, in the UK, they're much more mainstream. Media here in Finland. They all, these big players, they all were early on in the market developing their own apps for mobile phones. So the situation is different in Finland, in many countries in that regard, that news audiences tend to go to these apps for news, the apps of the news media, not for social media. And so they get a different kind of picture of the news environment. If you get your news through social media, the algorithms there they emphasize very emotional content and very disputable content because they create big emotions. But when you go right through the apps, you get more like decent picture of what's going on in the news media. And I think that's one of the main reasons behind this trust. Not main maybe, but one of the important reasons.
Yeah, okay. So how free are Finnish editors in making editorial decisions and choosing what to publish?
Well, we are humans. Some of us are more courageous, and they are not afraid of losing their job and social disreputation and stuff like that. Some of are very scary and very very careful in their what they decide to publish. But but the pressure from outside, I'd say that it's doable. I've been an editor-in-chief for more than 30 years. Before this job, I used to work as an editor-in-chief for several news outlets, and of course there are situations and times when you think that, well, I may lose my job because of this, but it's not as much. Like the government and the politicians that may come to you, but you may make a decision that is bad for the business, for example, and you make a decision that is bad for the media group. You may criticize a natural media outlet in the same business, media group, and it may turn out very nasty in the situation. I used to get some aggressive phone calls from feedback from some ministers, government ministers, but it was part of the job. Nothing happened. I just listened and I said, okay, I see your point, but we are of different opinion. Thank you for calling.
Okay, yeah. And actually, that also explains why the integrity of the job of Finnish journalists, I mean, they raise it to such a high standard, then they do not want to compromise with the truth, and they don't want to bow down to the pressure of politicians or, big corporations. And of course, I think because the rule of law and the democracy, these are so strong elements of the Finnish society. That's why, people like you who are working in the media, you can have that strong determination. Okay, I will not listen to the politician. He called me, but I will do my job anyway. I will continue it.
Yeah.
So these are actually all interconnected, if you think so. If a country is having, let's say, 2 or 3 components, but is missing the 4th or 3rd or 5th, so maybe they will not have this kind of, their journalists maybe do not have this kind of freedom. But anyway, so do Finnish journalists have to fear harassment or revenge if they report corruption? And
they have to. Yeah, sure. They need to fear harassment, but it's not the politicians. It's like people who are of different opinion, and they suspect that the journalists are ideologically wrong. For example, too far, too leftist, to red green, or to right wing, or they are covering the story in the wrong way, and there have been some nasty cases here. For example, this journalist Jessica Aro, who used to work for YLE,
she uncovered the Russian trolls.
Exactly, that case, and it took a long time before she got justice from the courts and cover, and the legislation is under renovation again in that respect, because the courts didn't realize how bad the situation can become, even if not one person is coming after you, but like he's the leader of the pack, the person harassing you. He's only a leader of the pack. He's not doing the vile acts all by himself, but there are like hundreds of followers who join him. And that was a new kind of legal problem that the courts didn't know how to handle until the Supreme Court gave out the ruling. A couple of more than a year ago.
If a journalist receives a threat for his work, what type of protection he will get in Finland?
You can seek for the legal protection, but of course it's time consuming. It's a very and you have to work. You have to take care of your mental health, and you have to make sure that you are able to work, and you can take care of your family, and all kind of. And the court is very slow in that respect to get the things corrected, and so there are these kind of there are guidelines for employers to give support to their journalists, but of course there are many freelance journalists as well who are quite. Who are in a difficult situation if they are harassed. They don't have a company protecting them. They are alone very often. And then there is this foundation that started some years ago, new kind of operation. They started a new kind of operation. They are providing help for example, for freelancers who are oppressed and harassed.
Finland enjoys a strong democracy and very low levels of corruption. And if that was not the case, do you think Finland would have enjoyed such a high degree of press freedom today?
No, I don't think so. It's very important to, as you mentioned, to have several
elements, components.
Several components. Thank you. Several components have to be in the place in the right way, and that is one of them. That there's not very much corruption in the society, and the openness you mentioned at the beginning and so on. They have to be there. It's a constant struggle because things change, the society changes all the time. And one thing I didn't mention is that as a reason for trust is that Finland used to be a very homogenic society. And now it has been changing quite rapidly in the last 2 decades. And it's of course, you have to then recreate the trust all the time. You have to be sure that people are involved in the society, all the newcomers also, that they can be part of the society, and to make sure that they want to be part of the society.
Exactly.
As well.
Yeah, like the immigrants integration program into the society. So if you can ensure that they are integrated well and integrated properly, so they will start, of course, putting their trust in the system, in the government, and also the society, and they will actually become part of the mainstream society one day.
Yeah, if we all succeed.
Right. Exactly. If a country wants to, there are many countries that do not have high rankings on the Press Freedom Index. So if a country wants to improve its ranking on the Press Freedom Index, what would you suggest? What can they
well, it depends, of course, on which kind of situation is in that country. But the main factors you have to improve are like how to create trust, and one big factor there is how to create openness in the society, and how to make sure that the laws are enforced in a due way, because there are very good laws in many countries, but they are not put into force correctly. And if the society is not open, you don't know if you can trust the system or not. But if it's open, you can criticize. You realize that there are problems, and then you can criticize and try to improve the situation. So you have to have this freedom of speech, which is another side of this access to information. You have to have access to information, and then you have to have freedom of speech to deliver your ideas and your views that are based on the facts you have found.
Right. And also, as you're talking about, this transparency and openness. So I was reading a report, I think, on the Vice magazine, which is published from America, and they ran a report on why Finland has this high press freedom rankings. And this is what they emphasize, like the Finnish government is really open because it's really transparent. So when you have nothing to hide, you can actually have high press freedom because you don't fear the press or the media or the journalists, because you haven't done anything wrong. So if the if the corruption and crime levels are low, the government will actually be very open and transparent, and they will allow journalists to do their job properly, to dig into whether there has been any wrongdoing in the administration or in the system. And Finland can do it because it has very low levels of corruption. So government and the politicians are not afraid of the media because they know there has been nothing wrong in the system. So they allow
No. I beg to disagree now.
Oh, really? Okay.
I'm sorry, Mahmud.
So what is the situation?
That's the situation. Like the basic level is like you described, that usually they don't need to be afraid, but a small detail can turn out to be a symptom of a big problem. And that's why, because there are problems in every system, and all the politicians are afraid of being exposed, that they have not done their job well. That's one. That's not that they have done something really bad or really wrong, but they have mismanaged in some respects. But then it may happen that some people try to hide their mismanagement, and then it becomes a really big problem. And so the public and the media is not, sometimes they make a they make a mountain out of a molehill in politicians' respect. That's why they are also afraid of the media, because something that they consider like a minor issue may start to look like a major problem in media. And sometimes media has right. There is a major problem behind it. This is the constant struggle, and the constant, we have to be constantly vigilant to maintain the democracy. So you have to be, you have to have some kind of peace of mind, but you can never be sure that there's nothing wrong with what I'm doing or what other people are doing. But you have to be of the opinion that you can be of the opinion that, okay, we have a great system that we can find solutions and improvements together. And sometimes, unfortunately, it means that somebody has to leave their job. And that's why politicians and authorities are not as, they don't have the same kind of peace of mind that you described, or I think I heard you described.
Oh, because I actually read it, as I said, in a report on the Vice magazine, which is published from the US. So of course, I mean, you know, in general, and also when I wrote that article on the Prime Minister Sanna Marin's breakfast scandal reporting, you know, and I read it. Thank you. I took your comment, and there you also said this, like, we have very good system, our legal framework and constitutional framework. We have a very good situation here, but still, it doesn't mean there is no problem in Finland. There is actually no country where there is zero corruption. It's not possible. Yeah. But the Nordic countries have very little, very small levels of corruption. And that's why we can say that they're very fair and transparent society. But still, there is no country that can say, okay, we have zero levels of corruption. So I think that actually relates very well to what you were saying. That
I agree with you. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Now we are on the same point.
Exactly. Anyway, exactly. I'm always a bit afraid of for example, Vice and other magazines, foreign magazines, painting a too nice picture of Finland.
I think you know, this is the tendency of all Finnish people. When we say, or the foreign media say, Finns are the happiest, or they have the best government system, or they have the cleanest environment, Finns are always suspicious. Oh, okay, no. Maybe.
And even when I think the first report on happiness index came out, it was a Finn who noticed that there is a mistake in the report.
It's the natural, and we foreigners say is the humbleness of Finnish people, because they are so humble. They don't actually say, "Okay, we are great."
No, it's not a humbleness. It's like we try to keep our feet on the ground,
and not to be very, you know, like immersed in imagination, but you always follow the reality, the practical things. So you actually want to, because you want to say that, we rank highly on the happiness index, maybe, but we also have our problems. So you want to say it like that. And now I want to talk about the Prime Minister Sanna Marin's party video thing. So the CMM, it gave its decision in November 2022 that Finnish media outlets didn't breach the ethical code by publishing Prime Minister Sanna Marin's party videos, but it noted that there was room for improvement in several stories. So do you think the Finnish media violated the Prime Minister's privacy by publishing the videos?
No, not at all. Not at all. Prime Minister is such a figure that she or he must tolerate this kind of surveillance and coverage. And there was nothing of such a delicate matter in the videos. She was partying with her friends or acquaintances, and that's natural. There wasn't anything that she did in the video. But the more important question, in my opinion, was did the media breach the privacy of other people who were seen on the video?
Because there are some celebrities and friends in the video. So So you actually question whether the media violated the privacy of those people instead of Sanna Marin, because
Yes.
Prime Minister Sanna Marin is a significant figure in the country.
Yeah.
Of course, she is the prime minister, so she has political weight, she has social weight. So her case is different, but also there are other people. So that was actually the matter, right?
Yeah, that was the more important discussion, and of course there was this discussion about whether somebody of the people partying there shouted out like some phrase.
Like Gengi, I think Yengi, is it?
Yeah, Jauhejengi, like hinting some kind of usage of drugs. Which can't be proven by us, even if somebody had said that, it doesn't prove anything. Like it was like somebody shouting something, but that was negative publicity, of course, for all the people seen in the videos at the moment. And so we came to the conclusion that even in that case, there were some problems in the how the things played out in the media. And we gave some suggestions, but we didn't find any real breach of code of conduct.
Code of conduct. Yep, I understand. So now my last question for you: your academic background is law. So what made you interested in a career in journalism?
Yeah, actually, I became editor-in-chief for some student magazines.
Ylioppilaslahti, something like that.
Yeah, and even before that. Like in the faculty of law, there were 2 magazines that I was editor-in-chief for, and then I realized that law is interesting, but it is even more interesting. This journalism. I graduated later on, but I started working as a journalist during my studies. So it was so.
And now, because you are the chairperson of CMM, do you miss your days at Ule and other places, Helsingin Sanomat? Because I think the job was kind of different than what you were doing.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, but now I'm back. Now I'm back to my roots in a way, because now I can combine my legal background and my background as a journalist. I can combine those 2. So I think this is a good way of getting like I'm about to retire in some years. And I think and I think this is a good way of doing it. I'm not phasing out totally, but because I can continue this kind of job even on retirement, I can take part in the discussion on ethical code, and as you said, journalists are always working.
Oh yeah, so,
you're working in the night. I'm working on retirement. Yeah, I hope so.
Exactly. A journalist is always a journalist. So we say something like that. So before I finish, I have no question. So I actually practice Finnish music. So do you want me to sing a few lines from a Finnish song? Maybe that will surprise you a lot.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Okay. Hän aamukahvin vuoteeseen on tuonut rakkalleen. Valo taittuu ikkunasta onnen hetkeen jokaiseen. Saa peiton alla koko päivän tehdä taikojaan. Ja tuntea kun lumi peittää maan. How was that?
Yeah, good. Great. Mahmud. Yeah. Yeah, you apply. Besides a career as a journalist, you're obviously planning a career as a performing artist, aren't you?
I'm planning to do it in Finland, and you guys maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Welcome.
Yeah, I actually have plans to go back to Finland, and if I go back, of course, I will contact you, and we can talk more about the Finnish press freedom and this kind of things.
Yeah.
And also I can perform in front of all the people in the CMM office live. So then you will.
Yeah. Great. Sounds like a good plan.
Yeah, sounds like a good
Looking forward to seeing you here. Mahmud.
Thank you, Eero. So thank you for your time. I'm really happy that I got you on my podcast because I have been planning to do this for a very long time because I'm impressed by the high rankings, the consistent high rankings of Finland, the Press Freedom Index, and maybe you have a lot of content written in Finnish for the Finnish audience, why your country ranks so highly. But I wanted to do it for the, the wider audience in the world who do not understand Finnish, because if I do it in English, then a lot of people around the world will be knowing why Finland has this high ranking of press freedom. And I actually kind of felt that it's my responsibility because I love Finland so much. So I want to, I want to spread the message of Finland and its good things to the people that they know more about it. Anyway, so
I'm happy to have learned to know you, Mahmud. I'm impressed by the depth you dig into this question.
Okay, thank you. So thank you, Eero. Thanks for your time and goodbye. I am ending the meeting.
Not at all. See you, Mahmud.